What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dragons on the Wall. I am Joshua Yehl, and those of you who are fans of the show will remember Jim Vejvoda.
From my 1 or 2 appearances. I am not Terry Schwartz, but I'll try and make 2.
Yeah, the B team is back together.
That's right, it's me.
Yes, yes. So we're going to talk in full spoilerific detail about last night's Game of Thrones episode, Eastwatch, as an Eastwatch by the Sea. So I hope you've already watched it, because we're going to dig right into it with the first thing that opened up with the show, which was the Lannister army being marched in front of Dany and Drogon, and that beautiful shot, by the way, of him just perched there and her addressing all the soldiers. So cool, I got chills. And then things didn't turn out so well for Randall Tarly and Dickon Tarly because she gave him the choice, bend the knee or face the dragon, and they decided to die with their honor, and she granted them that. But the question comes is, do you think she was doing what she had to do as a queen, and it was her duty to do that? Or is she going a little too far into dragon madness territory?
Okay, look. Every bad guy has justified their behavior by saying, I did what I had to do because it was, for something better, something greater. Like the Lannisters have basically said that. And I don't think Dany is a villain, but she's Anakin Skywalker right now, and she's getting real close to becoming Darth Vader if she doesn't watch it. And the fact that, even Tyrion is now. And look, he tried to pump the brakes on this thing. He gave her some options, and he did, Tarly did make his choice. However, there are humane ways to put down your enemies. Frying him and his son alive is pretty grotesque, and it's really difficult to, they're not going to have allegiance to her. They're just going to side with her out of fear. And the minute, if her guard's ever down, why would they, or if her dragons are gone, there's no reason for them to ever want to stay with her. But besides all that, she did what she had to do, but it was really out of her pride. Like, she calls out Tarly for his pride at not bending the knee. That's her pride talking too. Like, just bend the knee to me, all that. So
yeah, it is an interesting strategy trying to rally these the 7 kingdoms of Westeros to your cause by being like, hey, join my side or burn and die. That's a really weird argument to make when you're trying to win like the love of the people. And it's weird because all the people who have followed her before, like the Unsullied and the Dothraki, they've come to respect her, and a lot of her closer followers really love her, and they see her as like this breaker of chains, right? But in Westeros, that's not how they view her at all. She is the foreign invader. And yeah, you're right. This is a very grotesque way to start things off of hey, you either join me or you get Drogon. Yeah, no, I mean, and she's not thinking, I don't think she's really thinking as long-term as she thinks she is, because you saw the way, again, that Tyrion and Varys kind of responded to her, and they're sort of invoking really the Nuremberg defense of, hey, I'm just following orders, or, look, I wasn't the one that actually pulled the trigger. It doesn't make you any less guilty. It doesn't mean that you're not culpable in this in some regard. And so now I think they have to look at who is she? Is she the hero that's coming in to save everything, or is she just doing it for her own glory? When you're at war, people do things they wouldn't normally do, and I hope that maybe once the war is over, or maybe they reach this armistice, she'll learn to back off. She'll listen to Tyrion and Varys a bit more, saying, hey, we don't want you to be like your dad again. You can't go burning everyone who disagrees with you. But yeah, we'll just have to see how that all shakes out. It's not like Tyrion's advice to her so far. She has listened to him, and here we are, because she did listen to him, and it didn't work out the way he thought. That's what I think. And there's a little bit more, and we'll get to it, about will she stay a good guy or a bad guy? We'll see. We shall see. We shall see. Okay, so the next subject I want to talk about was a really kind of funny scene, because it had me pulling my hair out. It's when Sam and Gilly are together, and she starts reading from the book, and she's just like reading facts and stuff, because she's exercising her reading ability. And one thing she says was that Rhaegar, or she goes, Rhaegar, Rhaegar Targaryen, who she's referring to, had a secret annulment of his marriage and then married someone new. And then us who have been paying attention and picking up all the breadcrumbs, we think this is another reinforcement of R plus L equals J, as in Rhaegar Targaryen married Lyanna Stark and are Jon Snow's parents. That's crazy. And I was like, Sam, come on, what are you doing? Focus.
Yeah, I think, look, they'll hopefully comedically they'll pay that off later. Like, you should just let your wife speak and pay attention when she talks. And as Matt Fowler kind of pointed out in his review, it would be great if Gilly does end up being the one that kind of makes everyone listen to that, because it would give her a real function then in the story. And Sam has his functions otherwise, but it would be nice if she had that kind of payoff. But yeah, I think what'll be really interesting is how will Dany respond to there being a Targaryen with an even greater claim to the throne, because what this means, the reason why it's important, is that he's not a bastard then. He's a legit heir to the throne, and royal families, the king, his offspring, and that's the line of succession. It's not your sibling, So Jon actually has a greater claim to the Iron Throne than Dany does.
Yeah.
And what will she do if she finds this out?
That is the real meat of that scene. It's not so much that reconfirming the R plus L equals J. It's that, yeah, Jon has a better claim because they actually were married. It wasn't out of wedlock. So I think Dany, at first she will feel like, it'll be like shattering her worldview because she thought she was the last one, right? But as we saw with that, Jon petting Drogon and him like warming up to Jon, which is crazy. And Dany's like, whoa, something is going on here. She doesn't say anything. Maybe you should have been like, hey, whoa, how is this possible? Are you a Targaryen? That's what we're all hoping she would say. But really, there's, again, laying more big clues for everyone so this won't be a huge surprise when it eventually is revealed. Hopefully, they'll reveal it soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is crazy. I think it will throw her off her game, and she'll see him as an enemy at first. But they've made such a bond lately. And some would say, Jon's been staring at her big heart a little too much, and and it's a different kind of bond, like it's a romance forming. So I think she will eventually see it as a good thing that she can consolidate the power of House Targaryen by bringing together the South and the North, and having someone who was raised in Westeros be on her side. I feel like that would be the dream. Do I think that's actually going to happen? Probably not.
No, I think she is. This is her entire reason for being. I belong on that throne. Bend the knee. And what is she going to do? Just step aside now and let somebody else be ruler, or have to share power? Nobody in Westeros looks like they're about ready to share. They're only teaming up because there's a graver threat. Well, once that's dealt with, and if she still has her dragons, claim or no claim, she wants that throne. So I don't think it's going to end well. And I think the misdirect here is these possible romantic inclinations, the shipping of it all. I don't think that's actually going to happen.
Okay. Well, actually, Terry was telling me that. Oh, by the way, Terry is on vacation in Dorne. By the way, I forgot to say at the top of the show. But yeah, so Terry was telling me when we were emailing that she's actually starting to ship Jon and Dany. At first, she wasn't into it, but now she is. But I have to ask you, Jim, do you ship it?
No, I don't buy it. I know that they have a history of incest in the Targaryen family, all that. I don't think the show is going to. I think you get one incestuous couple on Game of Thrones. We all know who that is. I don't think they're going to do it again. I think it's a big misdirect because they don't really have time. There ain't no time for love right now in Game of Thrones. I think they're going to basically, it's who's a threat and who can stop all the violence. And Dany is not being set up now as the person who is going to be peacemaker.
On to the next order of business, which is Arya and Sansa. First of all, they have a conflicting conversation where Arya points out that Sansa really just wants to be queen, and she's sort of maybe doing things and preparing for the fact that Jon might not come back. But even more sinister and interesting is that Littlefinger is manipulating Arya and is trying to play her against her sister, against Sansa, even more so than she already naturally seems to be. And she's doing that. He hides the note, and she's trying to hide and spy on him. That's not hiding. You need to hang from the rafters like a ninja. You're a trained assassin. Don't just stand in the hallway where you're clearly visible in direct line of sight. Anyways, but so that brings up the question: do you think Littlefinger will be successful in driving Arya against driving a wedge between Arya and Sansa?
To a degree, yes. I don't know to what extent that how badly they'll have a falling out. Gee, if only they had some sort of all-seeing brother that was right there in the same house with them, who could snap out of it, maybe just give some answers and could just tell each of them what happened, what's going on.
He's too busy being one with the crows.
I guess so. Ravens.
The Ravens.
Ravens. But no, I think that, look, the big thing is, how far would Arya go? Is she going to kill her sister? Like, she's so consumed by vengeance, and she has no real understanding of anyone else's pain at this point, that hers is the only story she seems to be aware of. You know, other people suffered as a result of what happened. People's lives have been transformed. She's not the only one. So she's learned a lot, but she still has that sort of adolescent, it's all about me thing going on. And she needs to understand that, you know, first of all, the facts of the situation, that Sansa basically wrote that letter under duress. You know.
Oh yeah, we should explain real quick for those who don't recognize that letter. That was the letter that Sansa was forced to write when she was held captive by the Lannisters.
Yeah, by Joffrey.
By Joffrey, and she was essentially, the letter essentially says, she wrote it to Robb saying, "Hey, the Lannisters are treating me great. It would be cool if you could actually come here and bend the knee to them too, and it would fix everything." And clearly, that's not something Sansa's ever wanted in her life, but. Littlefinger putting that in front of Arya makes Arya sort of second guess everything she knows about her sister, because she knows her sister, like she said in the episode, likes the finer things and likes to be in charge. So maybe do you really think that Arya is going to read that at face value and think, wow, she actually tried to get our brother to surrender to the Lannisters?
She might, but again, like, she knows Sansa of X number of years ago. She knows, like, what, 15-year-old Sansa, however old she was supposed to be. She doesn't know the young woman who now is trying to maintain, like, political kind of hold on the North. There's a lot of juggling. She has to deal with the Lords, and she did. I thought she made it pretty clear that, like, look, Jon's king, and I'm minding the store until he's back. Sure, it might cross her mind, but crossing one's mind and then actually acting upon it are two completely different things. So I do think that Arya is so just consumed really by vengeance and by kind of hatred, and did she really ever like her sister that much? I don't know.
Not really. So they're already on shaky foundation. They're family, but they're not, like, they never super tight.
Yeah.
Now, I think that was reflected in
it's a Marcia Jan thing.
Yeah.
It's a Brady Bunch thing right now. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The game of bunch.
Yeah.
So actually, we always encourage you guys to tweet us with questions about the show after it airs. And one person, which is Kristen the Porg, which is an awesome Star Wars reference there, which is at Kristen K. Bates, asks, how much longer do you think Littlefinger is going to be around?
I don't think he's around much longer, because at this point in the show, everything is about plot. They have a finite amount of real estate left narratively to cover, and everything that goes into that show counts. Now, every moment, every line, everything. There's no fat left on the bone. So, what role does Littlefinger really play beyond? Once they get to the White Walkers in that war, you don't need him anymore. So I feel like his days are numbered. I feel like he has. This is his last stab at maintaining his game. He knows Bran's onto him with the Chaos's Ladder thing. He's seen what Arya can do, that she can take out Bran if she wanted. This is his last try at maintaining all his shenanigans. And if that doesn't work, if he fails at getting the Stark sisters against each other, he has no cards left to play, and he's a dead man. And I think ultimately he is a dead man, but I think if he makes it to next season, there better be a really good reason. But otherwise, I think he's done at the end of the season.
Yeah, he has been a player in the game for so long. In fact, I would argue that he started the game. Like he said when he gave Bran the dagger, he was like, this dagger started the War of the Five Kings and essentially started the story that is Game of Thrones. But I would argue that it was actually Littlefinger having Jon Arryn killed in his first big play for power is what started everything. It's then the assassin trying to kill Bran what sort of stemmed from that in a way. So anyways, I think he's been playing this shadow game in Game of Thrones. Essentially everything that's happened, he's been a huge influencer. Him and Varys have been really just like being like the big people who are moving all the pieces on the chessboard, and you might not even know it. And but because they have a whole plot going on at Winterfell, you have to wonder what's the purpose. Like, why are we having this like political thing and all the Starks coming together under one roof? Like, what is going to be the end game to all this, to this plot line? It better pay off at the end of the season. And I unfortunately do think that this will be the end for Littlefinger. I do not see him making it to the end, to next season. And he's one of my favorite characters, so I'll be sad to see him go. But yeah, so that's what I think. He won't make it, and it'll be because they eventually, like, he thinks he's playing them. Arya is being played by him. Maybe it's like the double thing, like where she wants him to think that she's being played, but really she's playing him. It's like the double play. I don't really know. We'll see. There's so much manipulation going on. It's hard to keep track of it all. But I really do think the 3 Stark children will confront him with like Bran's knowledge, with Sansa being tired of being a pawn in someone else's game, and then Arya wanting to put that cat's paw dagger to good use.
Yeah. I think one last thing on that. I will say that all it really does take is just Bran saying a few things. And you mentioned Varys. I just want to shout out to the previous episode where the Red Witch said to Varys that, you're going to die here in Westeros, and so will I. And I think, the same could probably be said for Littlefinger. I think all the non-essential personnel are being written out, in the next few episodes.
Yeah, so. I don't see Littlefinger being that useful against White Walkers anyways, assuming that the next season is when the humans are done fighting each other and they have to take on the Night's King and his crew.
It'd be gruesome if Littlefinger becomes a White Walker and he ends up in the throne in the end. But that's a different thing. Never mind.
He somehow supplants the Night's King, who's like this magical creature. I would always be interested to hear Littlefinger trying to deal with them, but we might not even get to that. We'll see what happens. So on to the next subject, which is Cersei and Jaime. So we had a big revelation for Cersei when Jaime finally told her, hey, it was Tyrion. Tyrion did not kill Joffrey. It was actually Lady Olenna who admitted that to him. And at first she didn't seem to buy it, and he had to really convince her. But she still seemed like she had it out for Tyrion. She just does not like Tyrion, and she wanted to believe that so much that it was Tyrion's fault for that Joffrey died. But now that she doesn't have that, it doesn't seem to have changed her much.
I think she'll always hate her kid brother. Tyrion is the kid brother, right? Yeah. She'll always hate her kid brother, and
Jaime's also a couple seconds younger than her. I don't know if that matters, but go on.
Look, Tyrion. She'll never love Tyrion. And she'll never forgive him for killing their father. There's a whole host of things. But if anything, now that she knows that he didn't kill their son, he serves a function in that he can be yet another pawn on the board. He plays some function in keeping them in power, keeping them alive. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately that's enough to get not him back in her good graces, but keep him alive. And maybe that's ultimately all Tyrion will want at the end, especially if he has any sort of falling out with Dany or can't quite commit to, wanting Dany to, execute his brother and sister.
I don't see that happening, but who knows what will happen. So I have a question from another follower on Twitter, Ian Hipschman at the Hipsch. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry, Ian. He asks, do you think Cersei is really pregnant, or is it her and Qyburn manipulating Jaime? That was the other big revelation, of course, of that scene. She's like, by the way, I'm pregnant. And Jaime just completely loses, looked like he was almost at his tipping point to where he was going to turn on Cersei, or at least certainly wasn't on her side as much as it used to be. But the second she said that, he drops everything and just kisses her and embraces her and is happy about it and has this rush of affection for Cersei, who's done all these terrible things. But yeah, do you think that they are playing him?
Well, I think part of the answer is in how that embrace ends. What's the last thing she says to him is, "Don't ever betray me again." And the look in his face, he's scared. Did he get trapped? Maybe. I think she actually is pregnant because we did see them, hook up the episode before, and that the handmaiden saw them and all that. And there's that whole thing in the scene of what are we supposed to just, have the kid now and just who's going to be who will say is his father? You are, I think that they could probably get away with it now because you're living in a world where, well, we can either have an incestuous couple rule us, or we can get burned alive by dragons. So, and that land of options there for people in King's Landing, I guess maybe the first one, if you're living there, like, I guess I'll put up with those creeps. But I think it also, too, it adds to the tragedy of the show, which is this is a family pretty much at the end of their line. This child now is a hope for them, that they can have this line, and it'd be just like Game of Thrones to put hope in front of somebody and then snatch it away, because it's really all about tragedy, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think she actually is pregnant. To the reader's question, she could have played a fast one on him, but I don't think that's the case here. I think maybe, this had happened a few seasons ago, but we're so close to the end now, there's no real room for a misdirect like that.
Ooh, it would be low of her. I wouldn't put it past her to fake the pregnancy, just to like have Qyburn in the room when Jaime shows up and be like, and he's like, what is he doing here? He's like, oh, it's nothing. And then at the end, she makes the big reveal that she's pregnant. I also don't know how you would fake that for long.
I mean,
it's not a very
3
good
months, 4 months, maybe.
It's not a good long play.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of another Joffrey coming into the world is very worrying, and so a lot of people wouldn't be happy if they heard that news. I think I guess I had to choose, I would say she's being genuine, but I bet that she will use it to manipulate not only Jaime but other people. Be like, oh, you're gonna execute me and kill my unborn child. It sort of like buys her like 9 months.
Yeah.
People, I could totally hear Jon being like, oh yeah, you are a terrible person, but the child's innocent. Let's let her have the baby. But then again, I don't know will Westeros still be around in 9 months?
Well, look, the passage of time is a whole other long conversation here on the show. But I do think, again, like the idea of the sins of the parents being passed on to the children is something they deal with this season. They bring it up a lot. And also, mothers losing their children. We saw it with Ilaria Martell, right? It was the Sand Snake's mom.
Yes.
And then, everything that Cersei has gone through. And again, I think Dany's going to lose at least one of her kids this season. So I think just continuing with that narrative through line, I think, her having a child, having this hope, is just going to make it that much more for Jaime. Like, he has that one more thing to defend, to die for if need be.
Right. One thing you mentioned there before we move on to the next subject, you mentioned the passage of time, which has been crazy, watching people just go from A to B to C, jump all over the map in no time at all, from one scene to another. But I wish they would use that as an excuse to fix Cersei's hair. Like, I'm not really digging that haircut. In fact, I was doing a Game of Thrones fantasy league, this little aside here, and I lost, you get points for style, and I lost points because of that haircut. So if they could please give Cersei like her long wig back, or at least give her like a bob or something, please. Like, I plead to you, Game of Thrones showmakers. I'm sure they're listening, they're watching.
Yeah, they are. That's the first thing on their list.
Yeah, okay. So moving on to something really awesome, a string of really awesome things, really. It's the return of Gendry, finally. And Davos, of course, makes the joke, I thought you might still be rowing, which is hilarious that they essentially took a meme that we created and put it into the show, which was great. By the way, Davos was MVP in this episode. He was super cool.
Yeah, I love him.
And his joke with like, oh, better go to a brothel before that busts out through your chainmail. And then Gendry meets up with Jon, and they have this kinship of, we're bastards of powerful men. We both have cool weapons. He's like, do we just become best friends?
Yeah.
And so they're going to go together past the wall with another crew they met up with to find a white. And they want like one of the White Walkers and bring it back to King's Landing and show it to Cersei in an effort to convince her, this sounds more ridiculous as I keep going, to convince Cersei to stop the war in order to fight the White Walkers. Okay, let's process all of that. So the first thing, Gendry's back, and were you surprised at just how much he was just he was a man on a mission, knew exactly what he wanted, immediately made himself useful and hooked up with one of the main characters. Hooked up as in like buddied up.
No, because again, like we've got a handful or so of episodes of this entire series left. There's no time for anybody to be wishy-washy, especially when I think it was like almost 4 seasons ago or something was the last time we saw him. In fact, so much time had passed, I had forgotten about a lot of things that had happened to that character. I think, look, Gendry, it's cool to have him back. It's cool that Jon basically has kind of a mirror image of himself there, that, a buddy, somebody that kind of gets him on an elemental level. And I think it's cool to see essentially the Starks and the Baratheons 2.0, the next generation. Even though Jon is a Targaryen, as we're going to find out, he might not be Ned Stark's blood son, but in every way that matters, he is Ned Stark's son. He is his father's son, in terms of character. So, yeah, it's just cool to see them kind of hanging out. And I love that hammer thing. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, and it's known that his father, Robert, in battle wielded a giant war hammer, so it's cool that like father, like son.
Yeah.
And Jon even has a Valyrian steel weapon, not as big as ice like Ned Stark wielded, but still awesome that these two guys are going beyond the wall together. So let's talk about their mission. Do you really think, even if they brought back a zombie, it's what they're doing, then transport him down to King's Landing and show it to Cersei, do you think that would be enough to convince her to stop the war and pledge her forces in an effort to stop the Night's King and their zombie army?
It might buy them a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, as long as the Iron Throne exists, both the Lannisters and Dany will want that. So as long as there's a prize outside of survival, anything that whatever advantage bringing that white down there does is going to be very short-lived. I think, look, if they do meet up, they're going to have to meet up on some safe spot, because otherwise, if they just roll into King's Landing with this thing, they'll just all get executed, right? So there's no. So I think it's like kind of, it would be pretty stupid of them to just.
Yeah.
But now
we have a zombie off with their heads.
Yeah, but you know what I want now, though, Joshua, is I want at least one episode in the handful we have left to be basically a road movie comedy, like a Weekend at Bernie's thing, where they're just all hanging out with this White Walker thing, and like, what happens? What wackiness can ensue? So
that would be amazing. You have to feed it. No, you feed it.
No, to be like, again, like Weekend at Bernie's. Just roll with it, have some fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like, what will this actually accomplish? I think it will hopefully scare all the other people, all the troops, anybody that would be like, why am I listening to any of these leaders about this weird threat? Like, you want to perhaps a bad real world analogy, but you kind of want to believe that the WMDs are real. You want some proof here. If we're all going to sign up here and go, put aside our stuff and risk our lives, you're going to want to know it's true. So I think, if anything, it'll convince Jaime, but will it convince Cersei? I don't know. I think at this point, she's so fixated in just having her enemies dead.
Yeah, I don't see that convincing Cersei. I see she's someone who she has a very narrow view of, and she just wants to get what she wants and to have power. And that would, she's losing, so I think that would actually be the only reason she says yes. But I don't think she'll really even buy it. I think she'll think it's some trick or something, and she will, kind of what you were saying at the start of your point of, she's just trying to buy time. It might seem like it's buying time for the good guys, but I think it's really buying time for Cersei, because she's losing. I feel like it'll give her time to come up with a way to win, or to take out all her enemies when they're working together. I've always said that I think Cersei will make it to the end, because the most interesting thing that could possibly happen is if they have to team up with her to save the day, and I want to see that happen.
One thing on that about the whole bringing the white down to Cersei thing, will she be impressed? Because, okay, she has the Mountain, who's basically been zombified herself. She's been this giant ass thing walking around next to her all this time. Point. What if he finally takes off his helmet and she's like, oh yeah, I've seen this crap for the last 2 years. Do you think that scares me? And he just comes up and he smashes the thing's head in, and then end of story right there.
Then it's the Mountain versus Jon Snow and everyone else.
Yeah, no, I mean, think about it. She has been basically shadowed by her own zombified kind of guy for the last couple of years. So.
That is a very good point. They should bring her more than one zombie.
And that's why I'm on the show, people.
Yeah,
that's why.
B Team represents.
Top that, Terry.
We love you, Terry. Okay, so I have one more question, and it is from Wayne Cody Galat at Darth Galat. my lord. Who do y'all think will make it back with Jon? I predict many deaths. And he's, of course, talking about that, like, Avengers Magnificent Seven squad, who I'm going to read off their names, because it is a truly badass lineup. It is Jon Snow, Tormund Giantsbane, Jorah Mormont, Gendry, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and the Hound. Oh, I just get chills reading all those names. That's like a fantasy team up, right?
It's
if you could
rad,
pick
man. It's
all the
awesome.
coolest characters to go off and fight White Walkers beyond the wall, that's who you'd choose. I'd actually add Brienne, the big woman, but she has a Valyrian steel sword. But aside from that, this is pretty good.
Yeah, I think to answer his question, yes, clearly, anybody who's ever seen any Western where a bunch of badasses had to team up, half those guys die, almost all of them. In fact, I think usually one or two of them are left until the end. So I think if I had to pick who comes out alive, it's Jon. I think Tormund. I think just because we want that payoff with Bran somehow, or maybe his last words are tell the big woman, and the Hound, because here's why with the Hound. We need a payoff of some kind of, he's a changed man now. Like, he has literally seen the light. Not that he quite believes in that, but he is atoned and changed. And I think characters like Arya need to see that. They need to show that people can change, maybe a little bit, but that degree certainly helps. And also, I want to see the Hound's reaction as he was burned, all this stuff. He has such a fear of fire. He has to go up, or sees a dragon. How does he respond to this thing? Like, he would just crap himself later, I bet. But I think at least the Hound and maybe Tormund and definitely Jon. But I think Jorah, and this goes to show what a packed episode this is. Jorah and Dany were reunited, and usually most weeks we'd be talking about that. That would be our lead-in. Now there's no time. Like, that's like, oh yeah, that great thing happened, moving on. So yeah, I think all the rest of them are all expendable. Maybe Gendry could come back, because I think that would be interesting for Cersei to be faced with one last kind of echo of her past, of her former husbands, and a potential threat to her power coming back. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be the only reason why they could justify bringing Gendry on.
Yeah. I feel like Jon still has a role to play. Gendry, he still has a role to play. The Hound, see, he has so much potential for what he could do. I want to see him in a room with his brother again, after he's been turned into a zombie, and had the Clegane Bowl that we've been hoping for, fans have wanted so long. There's been so much fan service in this season already. Why not give us that too, when he's one of the people who brings the zombie to deliver it, and is like, oh, you have a dead man? That's my brother. I'm gonna get revenge on him for what you did to my face. Look at this face, it's terrible. The other brothers without banners, they're all gone. Like, you need to have some casualties when you're going on what essentially is a suicide mission. What is this, some kind of suicide squad? So you definitely have to have some casualties, and they're gone. Like, Beric.
You think Tormund is gone too?
Beric is gone, Tormund's gone, and Thoros gone. Yeah. So, sorry, guys.
Why can't Brienne find some love? What's wrong? Why are you doing that?
That was kind of one-sided. She wasn't that into it.
That's true.
Maybe her and Pod will settle down.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, we're shipping it. Oh, new ship. Okay, well, that is all of the conversation we have out of Eastwatch. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you are if this wasn't enough. Somehow this was not enough. We have more Game of Thrones content on the site, plenty of it, including a conversation we did last week on the Golden Company that keep getting brought up. Who are these sellswords and mercenaries? We explained it to you in that video and how they could impact the show going forward. So keep it tuned to Dragons on the Wall. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us wherever you watch or listen to the show. And for more from Game of Thrones, keep it here on IGN.